what did we use the Easter Vigil to signify something internal happening to these two people? Water was poured. Oil was traced on their heads. The hands. Okay. Father Fisher used physical items to demonstrate an internal reality that was going on. And that's what Christ did. When he was around, he accomplished things through physical items. Okay? So that's what John is telling us. That's how they experienced Christ, through physical items using their senses. Second paragraph.
Jesus provided his graces to people by physical acts in his ministry. He used visible signs to demonstrate God's love for us in ways we could understand. John 9, 6 through 7, Luke 8, 43 to 48. Jesus heals and sanctifies us through things of the created world.
Well, let's go and take a look at John's Gospel, and let's just read some of the few items that he did. John chapter 9, verse 6 and 7.
With that, Jesus spat on the ground, made mud with his saliva, and smeared the man's eyes with the mud. Then he told him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam." This means one who has been sent. So the man went off and washed and came back able to see.
Yeah, here's that example we're talking about. He used mud and spit. He put it in his eyes to symbolize the grace now of God coming into that person and healing that person. And one more. How about Luke chapter 8, verse 43 to 48.
A woman with the hemorrhage of 12 years' duration, incurable at any doctor's hands, came up behind him and touched the tassel on his coat. Immediately her bleeding stopped. Jesus asked, "Who is it? Who touched me?" Jesus asked, "Who touched me?" Everyone disclaimed doing it, while Peter said, "Lord, the crowds are milling and pressing around you."
Okay. You remember that story? This woman goes up and touches the cloak of Jesus. Again, you get this? Using the senses. And what does it say when she touched the cloak of Jesus? What happened? She was healed. Was it her touching the cloak that healed her?
No.
What healed her? Grace. But we can't see grace. So Scripture is full of physical items that are used to signify God's grace coming to his people. Okay? And again, does God have to use physical items?
No.
You know, I say in other classes, you might have heard me say this before, he could have been like Samantha and Bewitched, and all he had to do is twitch his nose and it'd be done. Right? He could have twitched his nose to that person that was blind. But would that have as much significance to the people? All of a sudden he's healed. There's more significance when a person can sense it and can feel it and can see it. And it means more because we use our senses to experience things. You know, we can't comprehend invisible grace. It's beyond us. But we can comprehend an item, a physical item, that can impart grace. Okay. So we're introducing something now, our next ingredient, that we should be looking for in a church. Ways in which Christ can demonstrate his graces and give his graces by physical means. And you probably know where we're going here. So let's start reading now the first sentence of the third paragraph.
He gave his church ways in which his special graces can be given to his believers through the 7 sacraments.
All right, so Christ gave his church ways. Ways in which graces that he imparts can be given to people. And we call these things the 7 sacraments. We need to stop here just for a moment and talk about what these things are called sacraments. A little history. Sacraments. Does anyone know where the word comes from?
Sacred?
Okay, that's a definition. Yeah.
It's Latin.
It's Latin. There you go.
Sacramentum.
Yeah. Look at this. It comes from the Latin word sacramentum. And what does it mean?
Holy.
A sacred oath. So it means a sacred oath. And this is the word. Sacramentum was used for the first 6 centuries in the church. Then it became known as sacraments. In the Old Covenant, there are many oaths or promises in the Old Covenant made by God. But that's the Old Covenant. When Christ came on board, what did it do with the covenants?
Fulfill them.
It fulfilled it, and we went from the old to the new. So the new covenant needs to have new oaths. And sacraments are those new oaths that God made in the new covenant with us. And these oaths would last forever. That's a cool thing about it. Let's do a little reminiscing here. Remember way back in the Bible. I mean way back in the Bible. In the beginning of the Bible. Originally, Adam and Eve lived in what relationship with God?
Perfect.
Remember? In the Garden of Eden, they walked and talked with God. Perfect relationship with God. And there was no separation between them. But they did something, man. What did they do? They sinned. They both sinned. And what did that sin do now to the relationship with God? It separated them. And once they were separated from God and lost a relationship, they lost something. Do you know what that something they lost?
Grace.
Grace. They had grace, they lost it. The absence of grace means the separation from God. That's the basic definition. Okay? And now, since Adam and Eve sinned, and they were separated from God, and they lost that grace, what happens to every single human person born after Adam and Eve?
They're born.
They're born with original sin, meaning they are separated from God. They don't have that intimate grace with God. And it's called original sin. But God loved us, and He did something. And you've heard this from me very many times. The most important verse in the entire Bible, according to Vic, is Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. And what does it say in that verse? What's that?
Said if we sent a redeemer, he'd send somebody to take
He gave us a promise that He was going to restore us back to Him. God, the first prophecy of the Bible, God promised He's going to restore us back to Him. And He did. How did He do it? Fast forward in the Bible. How? He sent Christ. What did Christ do to fix the problem? He died for us, so what? Everybody dies. And He rose from the dead. And remember, there's a name that's given to that. And I've been drilling it into you. What is that word? Christ died and rose from the dead. Redemption. What are the other two words, by the way? A little pop quiz.
Salvation.
Okay. Salvation and justification. Redemption is what Christ did by dying and rising from the dead. What is salvation then?
It's what we receive.
accepted.
What we receive, yeah.
Eternal life with Him.
Okay, eternal life. And how much does it cost? It's the free gift. So redemption leads to salvation. And that's that free gift. And then it goes to the third, which is? Justification. And what's that? How do you accept the free gift? Very good.
Obedience.
Remember, those three components, whenever you break it down, it puts everything in perspective. What are we exactly talking about? So, Christ came. Am I talking too fast here? No. Okay. I'm trying to get you out of here by 2 this morning. Okay. So, Christ came, suffered, died, was buried, rose again. That's called redemption. That's how God redeemed us. In other words, fixed the wrong that Adam and Eve did.